To the channel. Welcome back if you're a current subscriber. Today I'm analyzing the body language of Gypsy Rose's stepmother, Kristy Blanchard, in an interview with News Nation. Let's get into it.
I just want to ask how Gypsy's doing. It's been a week now since she's been out.
She's doing really well. She's adjusting. Like you said earlier, she's making Ryan's home her home. She is adjusting as well as, well, beyond what I expected so quickly. But she said she feels at home and she feels at peace.
So right off the bat, her eyes are all over the place. She's thinking that's just data collecting and recalling. Her mouth moves to the side and she smacks her lips, and then there's lip compression there, all in one cluster when she's asked how Gypsy is doing right out of prison. And this is her just wanting to say more than she is able to say. There's a bit of disapproval there and discomfort around what she's saying. There is perhaps more that she wants to tell this interviewer, but she's unable to say, and she knows she's unable to say. So this also serves to give her time to come up with what she's going to say, to think, what exactly should I say here? How should I word this? Now, there might also be a non-disclosure agreement, which I do talk about in a lot of videos about Gypsy Rose because she has the series on Lifetime, and I believe everyone around her does have certain things they are able to say and some things they have to hide. You also see a bit of shrugging, but it's asymmetrical, not this shrug, but just one-handed shrug when she says, beyond what I expected. So that's what we're seeing here. And that was an interesting part because normally she might say beyond what I expected, but you don't see that, again, fully symmetrical. It indicates there's something more there.
What did she not expect? Like, what is she struggling with? I know some inmates, they will get out of prison and they hadn't seen an iPhone before. Like, there's certain little details that kind of shock them. 8 years is a long time, especially growing up as she did in prison. What has been tough for her?
I mean, I think really the toughest thing for her with her phone is New Year's Eve, we were at her house and she's like, somebody keeps calling my phone and I don't know who it is. And I looked at the number and it was her grandmother. It was Rod's mom. And I'm like, well, that's your grandmother. I'm like, why you didn't store it? She's like, I don't know how. So I stored a couple of numbers for her, but she's learning quick. She is learning it real quick. And I really thought she'd have it attached by her hip by now, but she makes a post, she puts it down, and she just goes back and does what she wants to do.
There's an increased blink rate here. Again, a lot of discomfort around this. Now, she is asked, what is Gypsy struggling with? But because the interviewer brought up iPhone, Kristy locked into phone. And so she's not really answering fully the question of what is Gypsy struggling with, but it's, well, as far as the phone goes, there's this number she didn't really know about, but there's a lot of indications of stress, even this adapter, this self-soothing behavior you see there, as she's not comfortable answering this question. And there's more to this that she knows she could say, that this isn't fully the answer to the question she's being asked, and she's not comfortable here, a lot of nervousness. Now, I do believe there's part of this where Kristy's not used to being interviewed, especially not alone on her own. So that could add to the discomfort she's perhaps feeling, but you see a lot of that with the adapter and the high blink rate indicating stress there.
So I know that she, got married while she was incarcerated and then was sort of physically able to be with her husband for the first time. This had to be especially sort of tough, a real adjustment. And I would guess for both of them, but how has it been for her?
I mean, I was nervous for her, at first, because they've visited, in prison and they talk on the phone a lot. And that's a form of intimacy right there. And they bonded over that. But I was worried, okay, what's going to happen when you get out? We had that talk. And she said it was everything she expected it to be. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. They did stay at a hotel the night she got released, or the morning that she got released. And she said it was wonderful. I'm not going to talk for her about experiences behind those doors, but she was happy.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
So she continues with this asymmetrical, using one hand. Perhaps her other hand is soothing or just gripping her leg. She's not fully comfortable here, and it could be a number of things. It could be her being deceptive. It could be her being deceptive because she has to be. There's maybe this NDA, there's something on Lifetime coming up that she can't talk about yet, or it could just be because she is doing this interview alone. But there's more that she obviously wants to say here that she's not telling people, that she's not answering fully. And you see that with the lip compression, the rapid blink rate, the adapters and the asymmetrical speaking with this one hand. I believe she's gripping her leg and speaking with this one hand, or holding a phone or holding something else. For some reason, you're not seeing that other hand. There's this incongruency here. She's not, again, comfortable, not confident in what she's talking about here. Now, it has to be really uncomfortable to talk about your stepdaughter or daughter or son or stepson's intimate life. And I believe that also is a big factor in how uncomfortable Kristy is in this interview, especially in this particular part. But you see a lot of mouth shrugging, this uncertainty non-verbally in what she's saying. And she says they bonded. Now, I believe Gypsy and Ryan did not fully bond over what Kristy is saying they did. And you're seeing that with the lowered hand. The palms often indicate open and honesty. And that mixed with the high blink rate, I believe she is being deceptive here. That Ryan and Gypsy bonded. I don't believe they did. But again, a lot of discomfort around this. And it makes sense for her to be uncomfortable. This is an odd question. It's an odd topic. And she's alone in this interview.
In the documentary, Gypsy says that she reveals things that even the family didn't know. Do you now know? Like, has she at least let on? And were there surprises for you?
There was one surprise when they asked me how did I feel about when Gypsy Dee Dee. And I was like, what? They were like, you don't know? I'm like, no, I think I would remember that. And she hadn't told her dad either. So that, it was a BB course, and I mean, that was pretty shocking. I did know about what her grandfather done to her. She told me, I want to see him 1 or 2 years in. And she had asked me not to tell her dad. She wanted to tell him when she was ready. So when she confessed, told him about it, he called me. He's like, why you didn't tell me? And she told me not to tell you. So he learned that on Cali as well, but I hadn't.
There's also a lot of eye blocking, that elongated blink there that's keeping something out or something and recalling something. Most likely in this, it is keeping something out. This thought, this idea that Gypsy had tried to unalive her mother with a BD gun, allegedly, and that she didn't know this prior, and that this perhaps surprised her. But with the eye blocking and the mouth twitch, again, this isn't something she's comfortable fully and certain of answering. And she's really not wanting to connect with the interviewer and discuss this fully and with confidence. She's not leaning forward, is attentive, she is listening. And you see that with the side of her face turns this direction with her ear literally open to the interviewer and these questions. She's listening intently and she's interested in this interview and tuned into this interview. She's present, but at the same time, she's uncomfortable and she's pulled back. You see the eye blocking, the increased eye blinks around certain topics here. A lot of this is just very uncertain and uncomfortable to her. And especially in this bit, she's thinking, okay, there was this one incident, and giving herself time to decide what she's going to say next.
To ask you, I have watched the Mommy, Dad, and Dearest. That's the documentary. And there's also the fictionalized program called The Act about Gypsy Rose's story. There's so much out there that people have consumed about the story. Is there something about what Dee did all those years that we don't know yet?
Not really. I mean, there's a couple of things that she's done to me. She even called the priest and told them that he couldn't marry us because they were still married. She's pulled some doozies, I'll say. Yeah. She tried to do everything to ruin our relationship.
So a lot of annoyance from Kristy in this particular bit, and I did skip around because I didn't want the discussion about the M situation with the grandfather. It was just too much. But I skipped around to this, and now Kristy has been asked about, is there anything else that the public doesn't know about? Kristy, of course, rolls her eyes when the interviewer asks about the act. So, of course, this is something that she believes is just dramatized, something she doesn't like. that part interested me a bit just because Gypsy seemed to praise the actress a bit in playing her part. Then she says in another interview she didn't actually watch the act. And so this is just a family all on one side of they don't like this dramatized version, and I'm not sure why, but there's parts of this that they obviously are annoyed about, and you see that with that eye roll there from Kristy. Now, she then is asked about Dee Dee in particular. Does the public not know something about Dee Dee that Dee Dee did? And this turns into a victimhood narrative from Kristy. Kristy says, well, there's something she did to me, but her tone goes down. Again, you see that with all the adapters and her just shifting uncomfortably around there. You see slight contempt and then her disgust, her eyebrows furrowing there before it turns into amusement. This mix of emotions around this particular situation and this victimhood narrative verbally. Kristy believes Dee Dee had tried to ruin her marriage with Rod, which, given what's really being said here, technically Rod was still married to Dee Dee. But there's this victimhood narrative that Kristy's playing up and annoyance with Dee Dee, disdain around Dee Dee that isn't entirely relevant to Gypsy in particular.
Which leads me to that question. Does Gypsy Rose plan to watch all of the content that's out there, the act and the Mommy Dead Dearest? I mean, does she want to watch those stories about her?
We've talked about it several times. The only one she's interested in besides this one that's coming out is the HBO documentary Mommy Dead and Dearest, the act. She doesn't really want to watch it, but curiosity, I think she'll end up watching it one day. I've only watched it once. Rod only watched, I think, one episode and he had enough. So I guess when she's ready, curiosity, it's going to happen probably, but I don't know when.
Continued annoyance in Kristy's face talking about the act. She first says, well, we've talked about this. When the question was, did she watch it? Is she going to watch it? Again, not directly, fully, and immediately answering these questions, giving herself time to come up with, well, what am I going to say? How am I going to respond to this? That doesn't necessarily mean she's being deceptive, but it does give her time to think about how she's going to respond to this. And it's not a natural just telling us what took place, just directly answering questions and being completely open about everything. There's not as much discomfort around this particular part because it is just discussion about the act, the movie, the act, and the documentary, and those aren't as extreme as other questions here. But there is a little bit of rapid eye blinking and some eye blocking as she's trying to recall, well, we talked about it, and there's the act, there's eyebrow furrowing, again, annoyance around the act and this dramatization. I'm not sure what that is, what the annoyance is around that particular movie, but there's disdain around that, and that's what we're seeing here.
So because there's so much out there, because so many true crime fans have followed not only the story of Gypsy, but also her social media. I think she's, at last count, around 6 million followers with Instagram and TikTok maybe combined. That means she's now a public figure. Is there any concern about her safety, and are you all doing anything to ensure that she's going to be okay in her newfound freedom, but also newfound fame?
Yeah, we want to get someone to help her, control her social media, because she's still learning. She has a couple of stalkers out there, I'm not going to lie. Some that are quite disturbing. But it's her being safe at home. I think she's going to be okay. If worse comes to worse, we'll hire someone for security. Mm-hmm. I'm just hoping that the creeps stay away from her, That's all we could hope for her. But
can you expand on that, the creeps and
the interviewer is saying how many followers Gypsy has, and this should have a completely positive tonality from Kristy. Instead, you see a bit of a smirk appear on her face, something more she wants to say. Something else is happening there when the interviewer says that Gypsy has 6 million followers. There's something more that Kristy would like to say about that, which conflicts with what I would personally expect to see in this bit, where it should just be a happy, uplifting moment for Kristy to hear this being on Gypsy's side, allegedly at the time. You're not seeing that non-verbally. No scrunching and eyebrow furrowing around this talk about potential stalkers. I believe that might be true, or at least Kristy believes this is true, that there are stalkers, that they are disturbing, and you see that emphasized with the eyebrows furrowing and the nose scrunching. A lot of contempt and disdain around this bit.
And what what has been said? Like, what kind of outreach has been made that's been disquieting or disturbing from some of those people?
Well, there's one in particular. He was saying he wanted to be there when she got released and hoping that they take a picture of him, and saying boyfriend is helping save Gypsy from paparazzi. He wanted to do that. He found out he had my personal phone number and address. And it's just creepy. He's really creepy. He has made multiple accounts trying to add, me, and I figured out quick that it was this person in particular, and if he keeps up, legal action will be taken.
There's a lot of discomfort and indications of deception here. The scratching of the neck, that's not natural. That's an indicator that this is not comfortable, that she isn't confident in saying this, and her eyes going all over the place. Now, we saw that earlier, and that alone does not indicate she's being deceptive because she's just thinking. What I believe took place here personally is that there's someone that wanted to be more a part of Gypsy's life that Kristy's not in favor of course, and they're making this person sound disturbed, sound perhaps worse than they are, and there's some distancing language here. He found out he had her personal information. It's not he had her personal information. There's this distancing, this extra distance he found out he had. And that was interesting. It seemed to be a bit of verbal leakage there. Something more is going on. And that with the increased blink rate and the scratching of the neck indicates there's more. There's something she's hiding. This isn't fully open and honest and what really took place. And then someone, of course, she's not in favor of, that she wants the public to believe is creepy, that perhaps is not just some random disturbed stalker that Kristy is leading us to believe it is. I'm going to end this here. If you've watched this far, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Thank you.